Doordash here, and I want to come to you today with a special presentation today to talk to you about something that is extremely important and should be extremely important to all gig business operators out there. Anybody working the apps um, needs to have a plan together for record keeping, and that is important because we are about to enter on the 18th of January. Tax season opens. Now, for gig workers, of course, we're not going to be one of the early filers, most likely because we're going to be waiting on the documents and things that we've got to get from our apps. But in the meantime, it's important that you're getting your records together and having them ready to go for tax filing season. It's also important this time of year that you're starting good habits. And if you haven't started doing some of the things I'm going to talk about today, consider doing them. This is not financial advice. This is just showing you what I do. The process I go through, and if you see something you like, reach out. I'll talk more about it. If you want to do anything you see me talk about today or do today, I highly recommend you consider doing something similar. But if you do this, you're going to always know where you're at. You're going to always know what your funds are. You're going to always be able to cover any expenses that you need to cover throughout the year and throughout your time as a gig worker. It's important you get an early start on this. The earlier start you get on it, the better off you're going to be. And it's never too late to start any of these practices that I'm going to talk about. So let's jump in here. And the first thing I'm going to talk about here is we'll go over record keeping, which is the topic of the day. But the important thing is you need to keep track of your earnings and financial information. I do this in two ways. I use an app. I use the Hurdler app, and I also use Google Sheets, and I have a tracking sheet that I use where I input information about each and every contract that I fulfill. It goes onto my sheet. And once it goes into the sheet, it spits out a bunch of information for me that I can monitor while I'm working. On top of that, when I get done working, I know exactly where I need to allocate all my funds to for that shift, so that as I'm moving money around, I know what the bill is to myself, and I'll keep track of that, and then I'll pay that bill sometimes daily, sometimes weekly. Just depends on when I send the monies from my apps to my bank account. But I'm going to go over what the process is that I use there, and I'll go over and get into some of the figures that I use for this. But I want to go over the basic framework of everything. The first thing is I keep track of earnings and financial information. So the second thing I do is I've created what I call working accounts. Basically, it's like if you were in a business for yourself, these are business bank accounts that I have set up for myself. I have 3 accounts that I use for these purposes. One is a gas fund, one is a car expense fund, and the other is a tax fund. Now, the gas fund is exactly what it sounds like. It's the money I use to pay for gas. Now, I will pay for gas with a gas credit card that I get rewards on, and then I will use the money from this fund to pay off everything that I'm using for the gas purposes. And then that also allows me to be able to get upside and things like that and get refunds and rebates, and I put that money back into my gas fund, as well as how I'm going to tell you I fund it. And I also keep a gas record. Every time I fill up, I put in the starting miles of the fill up, the ending miles, the amount of gas I put in, and then that helps me keep track of the miles. But most importantly is it gives me an all-important value that I need to know while I'm doing my workout here, making decisions, and that is, what is the cost per mile that it's costing me out there when using my gas. So I'm able to see that, and I keep a running average, and I change that average on my sheets daily. But I keep a running average, and I use that on my sheets daily. I update my tracker that I'm going to show you daily with those figures. The other thing I do is I keep a car expense fund, and what I have calculated out, I've gone out, and for my particular vehicle, and I encourage you to do it, you can Google it, you can talk to your mechanic if you have a mechanic. I have a mechanic, and I use Google. To kind of try to figure out and estimate cost, to try to get a fair market value on cost, as well as I talk to my mechanic, and I have asked and said, hey, what's the cost for this here? What's the cost for this here? Just some estimates. And then I've also got estimates on how many miles each of those items are going to cost. That has given me a combined amount of 10 cents per mile that I set aside every single mile that I drive. I started out doing 50 cents a mile or 50 cents a trip, but I felt like 10 cents was better because it wasn't completely funding everything the way I wanted it to be. But 10 cents a mile, I drive, it's easy, it's quick. I drive 120 miles in a day. I know I'm putting $12 aside. It's that simple. And that goes into my car expense fund. And therefore, every mile I drive for purposes of my business, I am putting aside that 10 cents per mile and using that towards oil changes, using that towards car repairs. And so far, I have been able to fund and pay for everything without any problem. And then the next thing I do is I keep a tax fund. Now, again, I am not a tax professional, so anything I tell you I do here is open for interpretation. It's worked out for me so far. I'll give an update on how it works out when I file my taxes and see if everything is spot on. But between Hurdler and my own calculations that I've been able to go out and talking to and researching accounting information, you'll see on my sheet, I'm able to calculate it myself exactly what my taxes should be or would be when I'm working, and I will set aside that amount it creates a bill for me, and I will set aside the taxes. If in doubt, I'll set aside 25%, but I actually have Hurdler calculating it for me, and I calculate it on a per shift basis, and that money will get set aside into a separate account. So there's 3 accounts I've got working for me. Now what I do, and you could choose to do this or not, some people would hold that money and then reimburse themselves. I have gotten a list of things that I know are going to be deductible. So when I am spending on things like my phone bill, a portion of my phone bill, if I'm buying something for the business, a bag or whatever, I will use it out of that account. I will keep the receipt. Well, I scan the receipt. I have a whole folder of receipts for money when I withdraw money from my tax account, and then I make the notation in my records on Hurdler on my spreadsheet, and then I know when I'm going to pay my quarterly taxes. If I pay any quarterly taxes at all, then I will know, exactly what's left in the account should match exactly what I'm going to pay for the quarterly taxes, and then that bill gets sent out. If there is no money left and there's only new money saving towards the next account, or normally what it amounts to is the money spent. So there's either going to be no money in the account because I've spent it all on expenses for the business that are fully deductible, or I'm sending the money to the IRS on a quarterly basis to make sure I stay up on my quarterly taxes. I've been doing that all year long. We'll see how it works out this year. We'll see if my calculations are spot on. I'll report on that. Now, what you do with that tax fund, like I said, it's up to you. It's your level of appetite for risk and how confident you are in what you're calculating. If you want to just hold it, that's fine, and then pay it out for your quarterly taxes. It should match up. I also double check all figures with Hurdler after I've put in all my expenses to make sure I've got everything right based on what Hurdler's telling me, and I go in and I pay those taxes every single quarter, or sometimes I have no taxes to pay, because I bought stuff for the business, etc., etc. But that's what you need to do there as you're doing. So as I put in here, every shift I allocate these funds. Well, if I don't do it every shift, it'll be weekly, but I do it before I touch the money, before I spend the money on anything else. I allocate the funds. I try to tend to do it every shift. As I'm sending money out, or at least when the money arrives, I'll have a bill already ready to go, and I'll allocate the funds, and then that way the money's coming in and the money's already gone out. It's kind of like I will normally have enough money in my bank account that I can move that money to where I need to move it, and then I will have money coming in to replace out stuff that was sent out. Once you get going with this, it's all flow, and everything is flowing. You just got to get started, and once you get started, it gets pretty easy. And like I said, it also gives you an idea of whether what your profit net income is. If you're moving, if what you have left is not enough to cover your bills, If what you have left is not enough to cover what you need, and you know you've got to do something different, then you know you're going to have that hard conversation with yourself and think to yourself, is this a profitable situation that I'm in right now, and is this worth it? Anyway, so that's what I do. That's what I recommend you guys do, something similar to this, making sure that you're tracking your information. I track my miles manually, and I track it through Hurdler. It auto track. I have my phone, my main gig phone that runs everything in my gig operation. I have several subsidiary phones. My main gig phone that's with me all the time runs the automatic mileage tracker, to which I swipe, and I'll swipe personal. It's a swiping system, and then I'm able to enter in my income also each week. I take the time to enter that in from each app, and then I compare it against what I have in my spreadsheets to make sure that everything is good. It's kind of an audit system that I do, and then you're making sure you're getting everything right. So my spreadsheets have to match what's in Hurdler. If something doesn't match, I'll investigate why. Most of the time it does. If it doesn't, I'll go through and figure out what I'm missing, get it all updated, and make sure everything is matching. So that way, if I ever get audited, I'm going to have several sets of records. I'm going to have my own personal records that I keep on each individual order, with the miles, with the exact mileage and odometer reading in my car, along with the auto tracking that I have through Hurdler, along with the information that I'm feeding into Hurdler that's backed up by the information that's going to be coming from the apps. When you have all that information, if I sit down with an auditor, I'm quite confident I'm going to be able to get through that audit, and I'm going to be able to show them. Also, Hurdler allows you to upload receipt copies, which I'm able to do, and I have my receipt file, like I said, from the tax accounting deductions that I'm able to use. I have all of that scanned on my computer in a folder that I keep throughout the year, so I can print those off if needed and hold those right there, and they're all there. And if I need to attach that file and send it anywhere, I have access to it right away, and it's backed up as well on a hard drive. So you do all of that, guys, you're going to be fine. You're going to be good. You just got to get started. You just got to be able to get this stuff going, and you're going to have a much easier time getting through, and you're going to know right where you're at. The mystery's gone. You're going to be able to make great decisions. You're going to be able to make, you're going to be able to know, start playing with the numbers, start seeing what's profitable, start unlocking the ability to think about things a little bit differently, because you're going to have all your figures right there in front of you. All right, guys, I'm going to jump in here next. Let's transition into my sheet that I use, and we're going to jump into that. I'm going to go through that real quick, and then we're going to call this a video. Hopefully you found this helpful. All right, what's up, guys? Doordash back here. So we are now in the sheet that I was talking about, and I wanted to kind of take you guys through this sheet that I use. This is my daily work log. I log all my work into this sheet. As I mentioned, I also log work into the Hurdler app, which I use to cross-check against when I am looking at my overall for the month, for the week, etc. There's a separate sheet I use that I use all my daily work logs. I will take and I will log them into my record that I keep for the entire year, which helps me look at the entirety of my stats. It lets me look at all the figures you're going to see in here are contained in that sheet. Now, I'm going to be doing a separate video on that because I'm going to be recapping 2022 to show you how I kept track of that, what I did. Now, again, this is an evolving thing, and this sheet has been an evolving sheet. Lots has been added to it, and as I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in this sheet, anything, and using this sheet, getting a copy of it, reach out dad-13@gmail.com, and I will be more than willing to connect up and get you a copy of this sheet. So anyways, let's get in here. I'll break down real quick what this is. So it's kind of self-explanatory. You can see I've got the vendors, the stores, the initial offer. This is information that I record. It shows you, basically I have a drop down, and this is allocated for all the vendors that I work for currently and use on a daily basis. If I sign up a new one, I'll add it in, but these are currently all the ones that I work for or I'm open to work for on any given day. Now, the stores I manually enter in. Anything in yellow you see is a manual entry. Besides this target time, I guess I should change that over to gray, but that's a calculation. But anything yellow signifies that there is a it signifies that there is a manual entry. This is a place where I am able to type into and should type into. Now, the initial offer is basically the information that, the offer off of the offer screen that comes over my phone. So I will enter this in right away, and then when I enter in you'll see there's a few other figures I enter on here. It will give me a target time. Now, my target time I set to $25 an hour. I always want to know what is the time needed to complete this order in order to have that order represent a $25 or greater order value. And as long as I know I'm doing orders that represent that or higher, I know my day is going to go well, as long as I'm working. Now, the other factor that can factor in there is how much work's available, and I'll get into a metric that I use to assess that. But it's real simple. If you're working and you're working at a good value, you know you're going to get your money in that you need to. You know you should be able to earn your money when you need to. That's going to make things a lot easier. Now, then I track my base pay. Bonus pay represents basically peak pay, quests, things like that. Then I have my tips, and then this comes out to my total gross pay. Now, the green signify that there was extra tips, so that helps me to be able to look real quick and see, hey, how many extra tip orders did I get? Which ones were giving me extra tips? You can see Grubhub, I had a quest going on there, so I got $3 extra on a quest to complete. And then I have my final order value. So that tells me what did the final value represent. And that is nothing more than simply the representative value of this payout if I continued taking payouts and continued working on a per minute basis for an entire hour. So if I continued to accept 875 orders on a continuous basis, that would represent what I would earn per hour. It is nothing more than a metric. It is nothing more than me to be able to see and assess how good the order is. I had some people come on here and make some wild statements. It's like, nobody works. No kidding. I know that. Nobody works continuously. It doesn't happen. But if you are working at a good value rate when you're working, you're going to make money. Okay? So, anyways, trolls be trolls, man. It is what it is. People will just want to make their comments. It is what it is. But if you're looking to understand this, if you're looking to understand how to do this in a way that makes money, understand this concept. If you understand this concept and you understand what you need to do to reach that to do this, to reach your order goal, your order value goals, you will like what you see at the end of the day. Now, this tells you the miles traveled, and I start my mileage tracking when I arrive at my first restaurant. I put in the miles, and then it starts all the way. Every time I get to a customer's house, I plug in the miles, and then that's where my next starting for the next order is. I'll just plug it right, drop it all right on down, and I'll keep going until I get to my final customer's house, and then that's it. I've tracked the miles for the day. Then this sheet, like I said, it gives you the mileage tax deduction. So this tells you for each order what the deduction was, and it helps you kind of make an assessment because you can see the gross pay. You can see some of these, the mileage tax deduction was higher than the total gross pay. So in some of these cases, I ended up with no taxes being paid at all on these orders. And then you can see where in some cases there was a lot of taxable income. So make your own assessments. It helps you to gets the juices flowing and look at things and assess, what's what and what makes sense. Then this gives you the miles per dollar for each order. So you can see, what was it? $2 per mile, $1.75. In some cases, I had as low as 45 cents. And it lets me go back and look at those orders and see what the heck was going on. Why did I accept something? And also, it'll allow me to look and assess and think, was I drifting a lot? And a lot of this, you could see, a lot of these were from drifting too much. In other words, I drove back dead miles and drove around or drove back from a customer's house and had to drive all the way to another hotspot zone. So it'll make me look at those screenshots a little closer. I'll go back and find the screenshots, look at the positioning. It allows me to have a very quick reference point to do some analysis really, really quickly. Now, this is where I enter my miles. So I'll enter my starting miles, my ending miles, as I mentioned. Then this tells me my gas mileage cost. So what was the actual cost? Because, again, a lot of people don't even know this. They don't even know, first of all, what their cost of their miles are. And they don't even know what, hey, they're looking at, that order. I'd never do that $15 order. And it's like, well, how much did it actually cost you? Oh, it cost you $1. And you made 14 bucks after that? Okay, wait a minute. What are you talking about? But anyways, point is, you want to look at that. The other thing you want to look at is your miles to pay ratio. And this is simply your actual gas cost, the gas mileage, actual cost, divided by the payout of the order. So what I'm looking is to keep this under 10%. Okay, I want to make sure that my actual cost to do business represents less than 10% of the actual amount that I worked for. And you can see some cases it was higher. Overall, I'll show you in a minute what this shift's total overall was. Was it under 10%? Was it above 10%? And I tend to look and see, hey, how did it finish out? Where did it end up at? And this is where you put in order start time, order deliver time. That's pretty self-explanatory. Tells me how much time was spent on each order. And then we have arrived at the store. So when I arrive at the store and then when I get the order in the car secured and I'm getting ready to pull off, I will track that. That tells me how much time I spent at the store so I can see what's going on. And that gives me ready to go information. It also helps me assess restaurants, and if I want to, get rid of them or block them on my driver utility helper app, it lets me do that. And then this is the estimated delivery time based on what the app gives me when I'm offered the order. And then this will tell me the projected hourly value based on when the app offered it to me. So this is what the apps were offering these to me at. These were the order minutes that they were telling me it was going to take. And then this will tell me, basically the reds are the times that I spent more time on the order than I was supposed to, potentially ran late. So I'm looking through here to see how late was I, how much, and what was the situation. Lets me snuff out problems right away beforehand, and lets me make sure my on time and everything stays where it needs to be. And most importantly, I want to see myself, my goal is to create value in all of my orders, and this tells me the value I created. Now, if you're wondering here, just as a curiosity, the average offer I had for this particular day was $24 an hour. So, not bad at all. Now, or at least that was my average accepted. Okay, so that's also something I want to look at too, is am I accepting strong orders? And that tells me I didn't do bad. I wasn't at the $25 or higher, but I was close enough, and you see where we got to the end to on this day that actually all worked out. Now this tab tells me is my shift stats. This is where I can look at the entirety of my shift really fast. I can analyze the shift, look to see if there's any areas give me a cause for concern. So my dollars per mile, or this area down here are what I call efficiency statistics to make sure I'm making good use of my time. And I'm basically have it set anything to $1. If I'm under $1 a mile, then I know I have some real concerns. I like to see $1.35 a mile if I can, or higher. And obviously anything above $2 is great as well. Although sometimes you start ending up costing yourself tax-wise. So I do kind of like to keep it in the pocket, and I want to keep my expenses, as far as my vehicle expenses, within a reasonable sum. So it all kind of runs hand in hand, and you can look at all those figures right here really very easily. So first thing is miles driven. Then I have my total base pay, my total peak pay, or my total bonus pays, my total tips. And this helps really assess, I'm normally 1.5 to 2 times my base pay in tips. This will help me look at that, look and assess that. Sometimes if I'm working Spark, I want to see if I'm doing a lot of Spark offers, then I'm going to be looking to be the opposite of that if I'm doing good business on them because of the tip baiting issues and stuff like that. And this gives me my total pay for the day, my total initial offer, so it lets me know how I did as far as extra pay and all that stuff. How many dashes I did, which was 12 dashes in this case. And then, let's see here. It will then give me my average order value. Now, this is representative of my daily, of basically the entirety I was out. From the first order I took to the last, to the time I arrive for delivery or finish the delivery of my last order. And that's what I look at. I don't look at the before, I don't look at the after, I look at that span, because what I'm looking to see is how much did I work in that period of time. Now, if I quit, if I for a while, and I go off for 2 hours, or normally if I'm done, if I have more than an hour or more between an order, I kind of at that point stop tracking that, and I will move on unless and start another tracking area, because normally that means I stepped away, I did something else, I turned off the apps, etc. Now, this tells me my total mileage deduction value for the day, so it was $77.50. Gives me my car expense cost. This is important. You see how this is used later. $12.40. Actual gas mileage cost is here, and then it gives me my actual delivery minutes, and then my average delivery order value. In this case, it was $25.74. This represents how well I did as far as picking orders. And did I, as you can see there, I was offered orders at $24, ended up at $25.74 for my delivery order value. This is the actual hourly that you need to worry about, because this is the actual reflection of the time you were working. So when you were doing labor, the only issue here is how much you were allowed to work during that day. In this case, it was only 340 minutes out of a full 8-hour day. So I ended up with, a work rate issue. So, dollars per mile. Pretty self-explanatory there. It tells me that right away. My average base pay, my average peak pay or bonus pay per dash, my average tips, my average miles per dash, and my average tips per mile. This just basically gives me a whole bunch of calculations that I'm able to go through. I'll go through and show you these, but you got your average order size, average wait time, miles to money ratio. I told you I was going to show you that, 6.66%, so it ended up under 10%. Minutes work percentage. Now this is the rate, this is the thing I'm looking at. 85% or higher is where I want to fall at. I have found when I work 85% of the time, a $30 or higher delivery value, I'm going to come in well. I'm going to come in at $25 or higher average order value, which means I'm going to be earning money at a very good rate while I'm out, covering that time while I'm out, and earning money and making the most of my time. Now this is minutes per order. This is basically saying, another way to look at this is like how many orders was I completing per hour while I was out. It was 40 minutes per order, meaning less than 2 orders an hour, and at $12.16. You can see right while we came in at $18.23 average order value. Had I been at 20 minutes an order, which is what I would like to have been at, and maintained this, I'd have been at $36 an hour, and I'd have been out. I'd have been earning money faster, and 8 hours would have been, well over $200, $300 a day. Just wasn't to be for my market. Now, this area, I use this shift goal here, and to use when I start my day, I put 25 here, and I bump it up in $50 to $50 in $25 increments. You could do $10, you could do $15, however you want to do it. I try to keep it small, so I keep having victories throughout the day. So I'm keeping myself positive. So hey, I hit 25. All right, now I hit 50. Now I hit 75. Helps me be aware of my pace. Because if I'm struggling just to get to $50 and it's been like 4 hours, I know, hey, I got to make a change. Maybe I need to change markets. Maybe I need to just go home for the day. Whatever. Something's got to change. Maybe I need to do, try to turn on another app or two. I need to find something to do. Something's not working for the day, and it helps me be involved right away. And then your actual hours work calculator. I have three sessions here on here, and there's a reason for that, because I want to work the top hours of each day. That's my goal if I had everything running to perfection, and most of the time it doesn't. But this is meant to represent the top 2 peak hours of breakfast, 3 peak hours of lunch, 3 peak hours of dinner, and those are the 8 peak hours that I would love to work. And I believe if I could ever accomplish being out during those times, that I would absolutely have a work rate of 85% or higher, and I'd have an earn rate of $25, an average order value at that time of at least $25 an hour, and probably a delivery value of somewhere between $30 and $40 an hour. It's just that I don't always get out during those times. Most of the time I don't. I can never hit the trifecta, but that's a goal. In this particular day, I worked straight through 12:05 to 8:05, had a lot of dead time in between, and you saw that because I had 29% of the day that I didn't work. So I, that had a tremendous effect on my earnings. And then these are the areas where I put in my gas costs. You can see I keep a gas log of, as I mentioned earlier, that helps me get this number. But I input that number there, and then I use a 10% expense cost, and then that helps make the calculations I need. Now the next tab that I have here is the tax summary tab. Now again, I want to give you a disclosure. This is my own calculations backed up through Hurdler and various different ways that I backed it up. But I do no one take this as any tax advice. Figure it out for yourself. This is what I use. But I basically have on here, it tells me my net income, which is my income after I pay my self-employment tax, my federal tax, and my state tax. And then it gives you the various calculations, how it comes to that. It calculates it all out so I can see it. And then it gives me my after actual mileage cost. So my real take-home pay before I'm putting anything aside for the car is $110.62. And then it gives me my actual tax rate and gives me my actual tax amount. Now, this sheet is nice to see. I like to look at it. I kind of brought it in so I could see visually, kind of like my own pay stub, kind of. But anyways, this is the one that really counts. This is the one I use on a daily basis, and this is because this gives me my bill to myself. So when I get to the end of the shift, my gross revenue is $145.86. That's great, right? Now the bill gets paid. $25.53 for taxes, $12.40 to my car expense fund, $9.71 to my gas cost fund to reimburse myself for the gas I used, and then I get to take home $98.22. This figure right here tells me the story of the day. If this figure isn't enough, and if this figure isn't meeting it, this is the figure I'm working to, because this is the figure that I can use for my bills, savings, vacation, whatever it is you're trying to do, whatever it is I'm trying to do. This is the amount of money that I have to spend. The rest of this is all going towards the expenses of doing business. So it's going to give you a great opportunity to see it right up front. And that's where the power of this sheet comes in at, for me at least, in being able to know that and being able to allocate those funds out and make sure I'm covering all the expenses that I need to cover. And it has worked out very, very well for me. So anybody interested in this sheet, let me know. Again, dad-13@gmail.com. Overall, guys, my point of doing this video is simply to say this. It is tax season. It is time. It is the time of year that we all have to be going back and getting our records ready, reviewing our year, reviewing what we did, and it's also a great time to start new habits, start new things. If you're not doing this, if you're not keeping track of things with an app, if you're not keeping track of your miles, your expenses, all of that, start now, guys. It's so important that you do that, and you're about to learn. And if you're new to this, you're about to learn how important it is when you got to go start filing your taxes and you get hit with all those complications. Again, I'm not a tax accountant, so I'm not here to give you tax advice. You need to go find that. But I'm just telling you what I do, sharing what I do. And I'm not going to delve into the water trying to consult anybody on tax stuff. But I'm just telling you, be prepared, guys. There's a lot of options, a lot of ways you can do it. This is one way you can do it. And I can tell you right now that if you have your own personal records, you have your records that you're keeping on your app, or on a particular app that's tracking your miles, you're inputting expenses, you're scanning your receipts, you get audited, you get questions, you're going to be ready to go. You're going to get through it. You're going to be just fine. On top of that, anybody comes to you and says, hey, what's the story, man? How are you doing as a gig worker? Are you making money? You're going to be able to say, yeah, I am. Here it is. I'm making money. Am I making enough money for myself? Yeah, I can say I am. I'm on top of it. I know what I'm taking home each and every day. And I'm putting money aside. So anyways, guys, that's what it is. Let me know any questions in the comments. I'm sure I'll hopefully get some. Maybe not. But like I said, I want to put this information out there because that's what this channel is about. This channel is about putting out information that's meant to help out other drivers. It's meant to share my thoughts, share your thoughts. Tell me what you do. Tell me the apps you're using. Tell me the spreadsheets you're using. Show it to me. Heck, if this inspires you to do a video to share as well, the more drivers we have sharing this information with other drivers, the better, because this is something that's not about competing with other drivers. It doesn't necessarily give you an edge necessarily, besides just helping out others who might not know what's going on, saving somebody from a tremendous headache at the end of the year. Guys, thanks for watching. Hit that like button. Hit that share button. And hit that subscribe button if you're not yet subscribed. And as always, guys, I'll talk to you soon. Stay safe, stay profitable, and start tracking that information.